Today we have Andries chatting to us. And now we get a lot of interesting people walking through the door of the green room. It's one of the things that I like most about working here is that, wow, every day there's someone super interesting walking through the door. When I heard what Andries was doing, I was particularly interested in that, but we have to get him to tell us about this. So there was something about Willowmore. I don't know if anyone's been to Willowmore. It's in the middle of nowhere. With absolutely nothing going on, and I heard by the grapevine that Andries is undertaking a rather interesting project in Willowmore. We have to get him in, tell us a bit about his journey, how he arrived at Willowmore, doing what he's doing, and super glad that I'm finally going to find out. As always, Andries is going to speak for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions during the talk, keep them, and there'll be an opportunity at the end to ask them. Thanks so much, Andries.
Okay. Thank you very much for that introduction. You might have oversold me, but here we go. So, Architorture, an ongoing retrospective journey. Looking back retrospectively, I'm pretty glad I took that photo last year, because it is quite fitting to my theme. Anyway, where am I? If anyone knows, please report to reception. So I would like to know as well. Anyway, jokes aside, my name is Andries Smith. I'm a self-employed architect, and I grew up in Port Elizabeth, spent all my life there, went to school there, studied there, started my career there, up until beginning of this year, where I packed up my house, stored everything, and ended up in the Gamtoos Jeffreys Bay area on my way to the Karoo, just spending some time here. So, yes. Anyway, what do architects do? I would like to ask the audience if anyone has an idea of what we do or what your perception is. Wrong answers only, please. Anyone? Yes? It's beautiful. Anyone else like to have a go?
Draw plans for what kind?
Yes, that's what we do.
Design McDonald's.
That is also what we do, soul-suckingly so. So what we get a lot is, this is the world's perception of what we do, you know, as you said rightfully. So, is this the best example of good architecture? We don't know, because this is quite a this was done by Frank Gehry's the architect. But anyway, nonetheless, let's see what the definition of architect is. A person who designs buildings and in many cases also supervises their construction. So very close to what you said. So I got some other definitions as well. A person who is skilled in creating artful, inspirational and socially meaningful structures that are eventually reduced to four walls by bankers. Which is the reality. Then I went to the Urban Dictionary. Okay, well that's point number 2 is their definition. But firstly, person that sleeps 2 hours a day, I can attest to that, even working as an architect, consumes too much caffeine and likes to overuse the words juxtaposition. Then, according to the Urban Dictionary, we are overworked and underpaid employees of a pretentious registered practitioner of the arts, which I actually find myself in being the practitioner, working for myself. Anyway, but what do we really do? We are the mediators or referees between clients and sometimes their bad taste, and then your council submissions, which is your municipality or your national building regulations and those types of things, and then also your site constraints. So we have to mediate and make sure, manage expectations, and kill dreams sometimes. Anyway, moving on. My tango with architecture, the torturous part. So, why architecture? As you can see from this image, I had to recreate it sort of, but this is the sort of stuff I drew as a child. My passing time is drawing my dream home. A bit gay. I'm allowed to say that, being a poof myself. So anyway, but basically this led to a love for architecture and space, and by the age of 14 I decided I want to be an architect, and everything I did up until from 14 to 18 led up to me studying architecture. Now getting to the torturous part, studying architecture. 2 hours of sleep a night, coffee by the liters, criticized around every corner. We had to endure studying architecture, almost like going to war in its own right. So basically by the end of my first third year, I grew a deep hatred for what I was doing. I don't know why, but it was just the process, I presume. Anyway, just on this picture, this is a lovely model with some scale figures, and I don't know if you guys can see there at the bottom, there's actually one of the model figures hanging himself. And this was a second year model. Anyway, nonetheless, by the time I reached my third year, I was quite unhappy with what I was doing, but I made the decision to push through and do my master's, which eventually took me 7 years, because I had this deep, morbid need to show architecture up. Eventually finished, took me about 3 months to adjust to society again, and about a year for the PTSD to dissipate. Long nights of waking up with cold sweats, of not being ready for your portfolios. It was quite a journey, but we made it alive. And also, the day I graduated, my parents were supposed to walk over the stage with me as well, because they were a great help. Anyway, working as an architect, I thought studying was torture, but working really got to me. This image actually, we had to do amendments on plans by hand to about 20 sets, because the client didn't want to pay for reprinting. So, it came down to the appy to write everything by hand. And my mentor was quite strict, so I had to draw little lines and make sure it's neat, just not free-handed. Anyway, so I jumped ahead a bit now, but entering the workforce, I was met with the reality that people don't want graduates. They want experienced people. So it's like, spent all this time just to get no work, which led to me actually starting my own thing under my mentor. And I learned quite a lot. Hated architecture even more, in reality, because what we get taught at university is child's play with reality, and I presume that's like that with all fields of work. Anyway, so by 2019 I was fully registered, working for myself, but I decided I need a break, doing something else. But instead, I carried on being an architect, which basically brings me to today, where I'm still doing what I hate. So you guys are probably asking, why am I still an architect? And I made a note here. Note to audience that you made a note about awkward silence. Anyway, to an extent, I'm still asking myself that same question. But looking back at my journey, I learned a few things. What have I learned? Firstly is that architecture was never the problem. It was the process that got me down, and everything affiliated with architecture. I also learned that I have an unhealthy need to show architecture up around every corner to prove myself. I also have imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, which relates back to wanting to show architecture up. Then also something that I learned is that I had to find in my work what gives me joy. And it actually came in the form of problem solving, whatever that might be. Doesn't matter how complex or how simple the project is, problem solving really got me going, even administrative. I also learned is that as a creative, we need non-work related creative outlets. That really helped me, especially with, I love music and I play the piano, and over the years, that has really helped me through to keep my creativity going. But one of the biggest things that I learned is my identity as a designer and creative. And this is my own definition, but I see myself as an improver. I like to move in and improve things that aren't working, or give my own interpretation. Even in music, my biggest thing is I love doing arrangements and giving my interpretation of that song, or how it makes me feel, or how I want the audience to feel when I do that arrangement. Which is difficult as a designer, because we all want to be cutting edge and original at the end of the day. But the reality is we're all different and we all have our own strengths, and we need to play to those strengths. And that's how I came to accept the fact that I'm an improver. Even with my own original work, I go through a process of improving constantly. You start with a design and it grows from there, and that's that creative process. See those two ladies giving and sharing a nod. There's quite a lot of things on here. Another thing was life happens, and a lot of the times we get put in survival mode, which can be quite negative for your creativity, and we start, and like myself as well, I went through a few things in my life that really put me into survival mode, and I blamed architecture for it, which wasn't fair, because in the end of the day I love space and architecture and buildings, and especially historic buildings, sorry, I lost my words there for a moment. Anyway, and then one of the last things I learned is that I need to change my perspective, because I always viewed architecture and what I had to do in working life and even studying in a certain way. And I had to start changing that up to find my place and my joy within that. So that's why I'm still an architect today. Anyway, so what's next for me? I'm currently in the process of change, professionally and personally, on a lot of levels. Like I said, I moved this year. There was mention of Willowmore. So how does that look for me? Firstly, I need to do some changes within my business. The type of projects I'm getting is not what I want. So I need to start putting my energy out there for the things I do want and that I do get joy out of, because personally, I won't be able to survive another year doing what I hate. But anyway, one step that I did take is my passion project in Willowmore, which is architecture based. So, next slide. The story about a small town, a synagogue, and an idealistic architect. So in August 2020, I traveled to a little town called Willowmore in the Eastern Cape. I had some friends there. So just sidebar, Willowmore is situated halfway between George and Graafrenet on the N9. It's also, it's not indicated on this map, but the Baviaanskloof is over there. So it's at the entrance of the Baviaans from the Karoo side. Anyway, back to the story. So we traveled to Willowmore. Oh, never mind. We traveled to Willowmore visiting friends. We arrived there the evening late, and the next morning I couldn't help myself. I had to go explore the town. So as I walked out of the house, I noticed this building. I'm just going to skip that slide. This building. I was immediately intrigued and saddened by its condition. And I stood there looking at this building, and I was just like, I wish I could get a project like this. I would love to restore this old building. It's just screaming for some love and attention, and it just needs someone that cares for it. But the reality soon hit me that I don't have the means or the time to do something like this, and I filed it for later. A few months after that, I went back to Willowmore, but this time I could not help myself. I had to inquire about this building. So asking around, I actually found out that it was possibly up for sale at a ridiculously low price. And the gears started turning. 1 year later, with a lot of soul searching and a lot of negotiation, the building was registered in my name. It's the end of 2021. So that's why I packed up and I'm on my way to the Karoo. Anyway, just some history on this building. This building was actually built, well, the cornerstone was laid in 1907. the need for the building in the area was for growing Jewish community that wanted their own shul. And by the 30s, 40s, the Jewish community actually started to diminish due to being ostracized by the Afrikaner community, which eventually led to the shul being deconsecrated in 1979 and sold off in 1980 to the private sector, sorry. Again, it was sold in 2005 to a group of people that wanted to renovate it, but they never got around to it. And then in 2021, it was sold to me. So, what's the plan? And sorry, I'm running out of time a bit. To be honest, I don't know. The biggest unsolicited suggestion I do get if people hear about it is, are you going to do a guest house? Cringe? No, Karen, I'm not going to do a guest house. One of the biggest reasons I bought it was because it spoke to me. And besides the renovation process, I saw a lot of potential in this building and what it can mean for the community. Okay, but really, what is the plan? So I've set out this year for an investigation process on Willowmore, because to me the possibilities is endless to what she can be and what she can mean for a community. And the correct response to me would only come through this process of investigation on the building itself and the town. So how does this process look? It's divided up into 3 steps. Firstly, I'm going to investigate the context, then the physical building, and then what I need from the project. So the first point, investigating the context, and sorry, I'm going to refer to my notes a little bit here. I feel firstly I need to go live and experience the town, even if it's partly part of a month. I don't have to live there full time. The plan is to possibly do that, but it's to really experience the town and its people and see what the town is about. Then secondly, I'm going to go into mapping. So that's when we draw cool architectural maps. At this stage, I'm not sure what to map, so I'm just going to start from a point. We'll look at zoning of properties, activity nodes, how the traffic runs, how people walk, and to try and pick up patterns in the town. This mapping can also go a historic route to see how the town developed and to kind of get a cue where it's heading. And how it's grown since its inception. Next year, I'm going to look at the economy of the town, how it came to be, and then, is the economy of the town positively growing or is it declining? And why the town originally came into realization, it was a trade post in 1864 about, and then what keeps it going and is this sustainable? Next, I'll have to look at the history of the town, how it expanded, which I mentioned in mapping, and events that happened that shaped the town as it is today. I'll also have to take a look at the attributes of the town. What makes this place special? Why people would want to go there? Why people stay there? Also, to the negative side, what can be worked on? Why won't people want to go there or live there? One of the biggest issues at this stage is water. They have water shedding. Only have water between 5 and 10 in the mornings. And then they turn the water off for the rest of the day. So, there's quite a lot of issues and obviously mismanagement and all of those things. I mentioned the negatives of the town. And then lastly, I'll have to look into the Jewish history and faith in this context and in a broader context to see what a building like this means to them even after it's been created. Sorry, that's a big word for Afrikaans boy like me. Yeah, because obviously whatever I do there, I need to keep everyone in mind, especially because it still has its cornerstone, which will come up in a photo later, which is written in Hebrew, and there's still, actually in that cornerstone, there is still memorabilia of the day they laid the stone and some coins and things, so, maybe there's something of value in there. Anyway, the next part of the process would be looking at the actual structure and its parameters. Firstly, spatially, as I said earlier, the biggest unsolicited suggestion I get is doing a guest house. But spatially, this building doesn't allow that. It would be an absolute sin to try and divide and cut this building up into rooms and whatnot. So, spatially, structurally, let me just flick back to that one slide. Oh, that's the space inside. Is you'll see there's structural cracks over there. And that actually started in 1969 when there was an earthquake. And then it kind of just went downhill from there. So structurally, there's a lot that needs to be done to this building. So obviously that's a big consideration as to what to do. And then the rest is just legislative. From the municipal side is what I can do with building parameters, town planning parameters, and then also obviously this is a historic building, so that's also has constraints with that in terms of what I can do to it to the outside. Then the last, oh, there's some more pictures. There's the cornerstone I spoke about. That's some of the interior shots. It's the gallery in the back. And then lastly, what do I need from this project? So this is one of the most important factors to consider, as I have the power to make a change and use what I have learned for the greater good of this community. But without being selfish, I have to consider the following: the financial implication of the project. So I did a rough costing. It's going to be about estimated at 7 or 8 times what I paid for the building. I'm going to have to fork out for the renovation, just as a base point. And then how can this act as an investment for myself? How do I justify the time I spend on this? How can I grow my business from this, being an architect? And then I also need to consider, what if this doesn't work out? So taking those 3 main things into consideration, I'm pretty sure I'll get to a place where I know exactly what the building needs to be in the end of the day. It's through that process of investigation that I believe I will know what to do in the end. So, in the end, this is the first opportunity I have to be my own client, really apply years of university education and the skill set I've acquired working as a practicing architect, accumulation of 15 years of experience. I believe only through a process of investigation on all levels, understanding the town and its people, will I truly know what needs to be done, without being idealistic. In the end, I also need to be okay with it if the conclusion of the investigation is that the town does not want or need anything from me. Thank you. No, I haven't. I recently packed up this year, so the plan is to move there. I actually already had to be there, but due to some circumstances, I haven't made the move yet.
So you don't really know how it is there?
Well, I've spent some time there over the past few months. I would go for 5 or 6 days because I have friends living there. So I have a good feel of the town already. Okay, so basically what I did was, just before I bought it, I did a full survey of the building and started drawing up plans for it to get sizing and dimensions. And then I started taking all the different issues and basically just applying a per square meter rate to that. Realistically, obviously speaking with builders and engineers to get to a place where I know what needs to be done. But it's pretty evident, you know, there's a lot of cosmetic work that needs to be done. Basically, the entire inside needs to be plastered because it's crumbling. Obviously, the that scoring was done in 1908, and the bricks as well. So, there's a lot of cosmetic things that I could measure in square meterage and just say, okay, cool, per square meter it costs so much to do plastering. The biggest expense is going to be the foundation work, because basically it's packed stone, the foundation of the building. So we need to underpin that, and you can't underpin it as a full section. We have to do it in little sections, dig out place, to do that. So I think that's going to be about 200,000 to 300,000 rand just to do that process of underpinning and making it structurally sound. So when it was deconsecrated,
I think you wanted to say deconsecrated?
Yes, deconsecrated. It went over to the public sector or private sector, so it's zoned as business rights too. So I can do a restaurant. There's a few things that I can do on those rights. But in terms of the religious side of it, in my title deed, it states that I can't have a pig slaughtery or pig tannery.
Wow.
I also can't have I can't host any religious events there. So those are from the Jewish side. I can't do those three things. I'm not sure if it's registered as a historic or heritage site. It doesn't have the plaque. So and at this stage, I don't think there is any support that one would get from a municipal or government side to restore something like this. I actually thought of, if push comes to shove, maybe appealing to the Jewish community for something like this, as this is part of their history in the area, even though it went a bit south. Yeah, no, definitely. It works hand in hand in the end of the day. So this building, let's get a picture of it. My first instinct was, I need to paint it black. Completely. and that thing, that like knee-jerk thing, when I walked inside, I was like, this space needs to be what it is now. It doesn't need anything. There is some room to, if you want to turn it into, if I would like to eventually turn it into a house or anything, there is some opportunity to do that without taking away from the space. But obviously that was initially when I walked in. I haven't had time to start that process. That's why today was the introduction of the process I would like to follow, but definitely going to go hand in hand, which is difficult because now I've already created this idea of what I want to do. And if my findings are different, I'm going to have to deal with that when that comes up. But it's definitely a process that needs to run hand in hand. You can't separate the two. We'll see. In terms of the structure as it is, I still need to get an engineer fully involved in terms of the structural damage. But I should be able to preserve it as far as possible as it stands there, because it's very basic on the inside. There's I'm going to try and restore some of the old fixtures that I can see that was there, like wall paneling and stuff like that. But as it stands, I won't have to change much to it aesthetically. It will still have. I have some ideas for the interior of the building, modernizing it. But that's more from an aesthetic point of view and playing off the old and the new. Which ignited me buying this. Actually, no, it was just literally, I stood in front of this building. I was like, I need to have this. I don't care. I don't care about anything. And also, it's difficult imposing those things, and that's the process I want to follow. Is imposing those like strict ideas, like I see, this is going to be this great like guest house, or.
Okay, so you just love the building.
Yes, it was. I mainly bought it for just the project of having something to renovate, because also, like I said, it came. Well, I negotiated a lot, but it came at a really good price. So it's like, with COVID, we all learned that we can work remotely. And nothing stops me from working remotely from Willowmore and just traveling a few days a month, and with the price I paid for this and renovation, it equates to buying a new house, and I would love to stay in something like that. So that's how the idea started, actually, was more personally. And then as the project in my mind evolved, I saw that this could actually act as something bigger within this community, possibly, so it actually became, I'll get your question now. That idea started growing with me, but I've yet to find out what it can be or what the community would want from something like that and how this can be beneficial to them. Loaded question. I think basically I started off quite strong with architecture, and then there was a few things that happened in my life by my second year, which was personal things that got me quite down, and I really hated what I was doing, but it really became this need to finish this. I wasn't willing to give up. Like, I had to really put myself down and say, I'm going to do this, because obviously my parents invested in me, and I set out to do this since 14. So I really had to motivate myself to see this process through, and I did third year 3 times. Yes, and then the second part was?
What did you enjoy the most about studying architecture?
I think looking back, what I enjoyed was is actually realizing what they were trying to teach us. And sorry, that's actually one of the things I learned that I failed to mention now, is that retrospectively I realized is that these people only have 5 years to teach us how to become a responsible designer. So that's why even if you're good, they question you. Everything you do, they question and criticize you. And looking back now, I was like, oh, okay, that process wasn't actually so bad. I just wish I knew that then. Because it also, retrospectively, I realized that, you need to believe in yourself and your vision and all of those things. But studying, the best thing was the student life, we had our little group and we just smoked so many cigarettes. I'm glad you actually asked that question, because part of my process before I bought the building, I ran the idea past a lot of people, and 99% of the people gave a positive response. They were like, go do it, go do it, go do it. The only negative response I got was from a friend of mine that's an accountant. And it was basically how you would survive there, and then obviously in terms of this building, is this going to be a investment at the end of the day? Which I also sort of figured out looking at the property prices, what I paid for it, what I'm going to spend, I believe I'll break even at least if I have to sell it. But I believe the right buyer will pay for something like this, because it has it has quite a rich history. So, yeah, if that answered you. Yes, no. Obviously, and that was, part of the journey I am, is doing something for myself, and this is what I decided to do with all my energy.
Really cool. Okay, that was great. Thanks so much, Andries.
Thank you.
Happy that I finally know, and I think as an observation, you've bought a house, but actually what you want to do is revive a small town community.
Yes.
And go on a journey, which sounds familiar to our own, so we can relate. Thanks everyone. If you haven't grabbed your sandwich yet, there's still a couple up there if you ordered one. Round of applause for Andries.
Thank you guys.